What's going on? This is Kareem from DJBooth.net, and I'm here in the lab to give you guys a really quick review video of the new Denon DJ Prime 2. It's not that new, it's actually been out for a few months now, but it is the Prime 2, which is essentially the two-channel, more compact, more trimmed down version of the Denon DJ Prime 4, which is their flagship all-in-one DJ unit. This also is an all-in-one unit, meaning you don't need a separate laptop in order to play your music on this device. All you need is some powered speakers or an amp and some speakers, and some headphones and a USB drive or either an SD card and or also a drive that you can insert in the back, a real computer hard drive, so that way you have a whole lot of your library right here at your fingertips. So it makes it really easy for you guys to start playing right away without the use of a computer. It's an all-in-one setup. It runs on Engine OS, and that is Denon DJ's software. We did a review on the Denon DJ Prime 4 last year, and we'll flash that on the top section somewhere around here, so that way you can go there and you can see a really big breakdown of all of your different screen functions. It's going to be pretty much the same here. Again, this is the trimmed down version, so you are going to lose a few features. You're also going to lose some size of things like your jog wheels and your performance pads. You're also going to lose some other essential functionality that I think makes the Prime really good, but we're going to go into that a little bit later. But for right now, we're going to talk about the build quality, and the build quality of the entire Prime range from Denon DJ is really good, and the Prime 2 is absolutely no difference at all. It has a really nice metal texture up at the top faceplate with a lot of plastic in the surrounds, but there's also a lot of metal inside that you can see in the back panel and in back of your different input and output connections. So it's really reinforced. It feels very sturdy, very solid. It's not that really cheap thin plastic. It has your screen here, which is in a fixed position, but it is angled towards the user slightly, so that way you're not going to be cramping trying to see right directly over the unit in order to see your touch screen here. Again, it's based on the same Denon engine software that you can now use in the SC5000 Primes, the 6000 Primes, also the Prime 2, the Prime 4, and also the newly released Prime Go, which is the battery-powered version. They all are running on this cool Engine Prime ecosystem, and they got some really cool tricks up their sleeve that the other DJ companies just don't have yet. Overall, though, a really good, smooth controller. It's, again, shorter in height and in width from the Prime 4. For those users who thought the Prime 4 was a bit big, then this might be the unit for you, as it still has a lot of features that the Prime 4 has, but at the same time, a nice smaller footprint. You have your inputs and outputs on the back, and we'll go over all of your inputs and outputs right away. On the front, you have your two headphone jacks here. You have your big 1/4 inch and, of course, your mini jack. Around the back, you have your power cable all the way to the left. There's also your power switch on and off. You have your two USB 3.0 sockets here. One of them is also powered. And then you have your USB-B, so that you can link this to a computer to do things like adjust the music in your hard drive that you have on board. And you can also probably pair this for maybe a software that they may make this compatible with at a later date. You also have your link cable here. Then you have your booth and your master output. They're both XLR balanced. That's really good to see. Then you have your unbalanced master out, which is RCA, and you have a switch here, so you can switch that between stereo mode or mono mode. Then you have an auxiliary input. It's cool that they did include at least one auxiliary input here for in case of any type of failure or any other songs or any other sources that you want to use that may not be on board with the Prime 2. Next, you have your two combination microphone jacks, so that way you can use an XLR or a TRS connection with both of your microphones. The downside of the Prime 2 versus the Prime 4 again shows its face here, because you don't have your zone output where you can put a zone out to a totally different place, and that way you can have music playing that you can play something different when you're using your regular outputs. They also don't have the inputs for your different 4 channels, so you lose your standalone mixer mode that was really good with the Denon DJ Prime 4. So you're starting to see some of the sacrifices that you may not want to make when you look at the Prime 2 versus the Prime 4, such as your standalone mixer options with your inputs and outputs. That way you can use turntables and all sorts of other mixing goodness. Your CDJs can easily plug in and you can control them with your channel faders, but here on this device you cannot do that. You only have your single auxiliary input. And you also don't get that zone out feature, which I thought was really intuitive, really creative, and really cool for DJs who are really in the grind, is out there doing gigs and weddings. So that way you can have your cocktail hour and you can have your outputs coming from your zone output playing something totally different than what you're playing here on this unit with your other channels. So I do kind of miss that feature here, especially for those performing DJs out there. So let's just put this bad boy on the table, get it down and playing, and we'll go through all of the features and functions and see exactly what the Prime 2 is all about. Alright, so here it is. This is the Denon DJ Prime 2. If you guys are looking for 4 channels of control, then you want to look at the Denon DJ Prime 4. The Prime 2 here, of course, is 2 channels only. All the way in the front, you have your 2 headphone outputs. You have both the 1/4 inch and the mini jack. Then you also have the crossfader assign switches to assign the crossfader on channel 1 or channel 2 to the left or to the right side, or you can have it in the middle, meaning the crossfader has no bearing on your mixing control. Then you also have a crossfader contour knob all the way to the right, so that way you can change the contour of the crossfader to be very, very sharp or to be a nice smooth long fade. Right here is your crossfader. It's fully serviceable and removable. If you guys really like the scratch, you're probably going to want to replace this for an innofader, because as it stands, the crossfader cut-in distance is a little bit on the longer side. You can do most of your scratching here, but the jog wheels kind of hinder that a bit for me, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But the crossfader that's here is perfectly fine just for your normal everyday mixing and little bit of scratching here and there. But if you want to get really serious with it, you're definitely going to want to change this out for like a mini innofader or something like that. Next up, you have your line faders. They're a little bit more stiff to them, nice for nice mixing very smoothly. Then you have your headphone section here in the middle. You have your split cue button, so that way you can have master playing in one of your headphones and whatever's queued up in your other headphone. And then you have your level control volume, and then you have your cue mix master knob, so that way you can listen to what either is in your queued up section or what is coming out of your master speakers. You have your cue buttons here, so that way you can cue your different channels. You also have cues up there, so you can cue up whatever's on your auxiliary port on the back, so that way you can understand what's going on in your headphones before the crowd hears your performance. Next, you have your low, high pass filter knobs. They have a nice center detent, so you know when it's off. You have your metering here. You have your master meters in the middle and your 2 individual line level meters for channel 1 and 2 all the way on the outsides. You have your low, mid, high EQ. The EQs are adjustable within the menu here on the screen. We'll show you that later. You can make them full kill, and you can also adjust their cutoff section as well. All the way at the top, you have your gain knobs. Then you have your navigation controls here. You can actually go through the different views for the screen. You have your library view. You can hit search. The keyboard pops up for you. You also have the view of where you have your 2 tracks on the outside and your music on the middle. You have a touch sensitive area on the screen at the top, so that way you can search through your song really easily at the touch of your finger. Next here you have your 2 load buttons, so you can load tracks to the left or to the right. You can go backwards and forwards in the navigation of your different drives on here as well. And you have a nice big oversized knob in case you want to use the knob instead of swipe and gesture controls. Next you have your 2 decks. All the way at the top of the left deck, you have your FX1. All the way on the top of the right deck, you have your FX2. You can select your different effects here. You have echo, delay, hall, ping pong, auto gate, flanger, LFO filter, phaser, crush, roll, rev, roll, scratch, and reverb. And you can have 2 different effects on all at the same time. You have your FX parameter knob, and then you have your wet and dry knob, so you can change the different ways that the effects work. You have your on and off button here, all the way at the top, so that way you can turn your effects on or off. Next, you have your microphone controls up here in the top left. You have mic 1 on, mic 2 on, and you can turn them off very easily. You have your level control knob for each one, and they share an EQ here, low, mid, and high. It would be cool if they had 2 separate low, mid, and highs, because sometimes you want to EQ your microphone separately, but you know, it's good that they have it at all. And then you have a talk over button, so that way all of your music or whatever's playing can lower in volume while you're speaking over it automatically. On the other side, you have your master control volume knob, your booth volume knob, and your auxiliary input volume knob, along with, again, the Q button, so that way you can hear what's coming out of the auxiliary source. Next, you have your SD card slot and your USB slot here, and you have a safe eject button, so that way you can safely eject your music without damaging the drive. Next, you have your 2 decks. They are identical on both sides. The first thing that pops out to me about the deck is these nice long pitch sliders. They don't have a center detent, but they do have a light that comes on, so that way you know when you're at absolute perfect 0. They're very, very good, very accurate, and you can actually change the parameters for plus and minus to be plus minus 8, 16, or even very high if you need it to be as such. You also have your pitch bend buttons here, and again, very nice work here. It works perfect for your long beat matching situations when you want to ride the tempo and manually beat match. And you also have your sync button and your key sync button up here too, so that way you can sync everything if you want to as well without using your different pitch sliders. Next up, you have your loop section. If you press the knob, it's an auto loop, and you can make it bigger by turning the knob to the right or smaller by turning the knob to the left. You have manual in and out here as well, and you can also move your loop by hitting shift and then moving this knob, and that way you'll be able to move where your loop is in the track. You have a reverse if you hit shift and the censor, and then you have a censor button, so it monetarily will play the song in reverse, so that way you can censor out curse words and things like that. You have your tracks forward, backwards, so that way you can go really quick through your track skip. Then you have a beat jump where you can actually jump through the track by beats of bars. Next, you have your cue and your play and pause buttons. They're very nice to feel. They have like a nice brushed aluminum feel to them on the top, and they work just as advertised. Yeah. Very, very accurate, and they have a nice certain click to them, so you know when they're actually being enacted. Next, you have your jog wheels themselves, and this is one of my minor issues with the unit, or basically my major issue with the unit, is that these jog wheels don't really feel too close to vinyl, in my opinion. They're pretty stiff. They don't have a long spin back to them. We'll show you really quickly what we mean. They just don't feel as fluid as I like my turntables and my other CDJs and things of that nature to feel. So I still think that they need to work on the way that their jog wheels feel at this moment. They are serviceable. They are pretty accurate. Again, they work very well for different bending and blending and minor scratching here and there. But if you're trying to get very complicated and very fast-handed with them, then you probably won't be as good as you will be with other different units and devices. Next, you have a vinyl button here, so that way you can have the jog wheel either work like vinyl or work like a jog wheel that just speeds up and slows down the track. And you also have your performance mode section down here all the way at the bottom. You have hot cues, loops, auto loops, rolls, slicer, and slicer loop. Give you a quick demo of these. Yeah. Yeah. Proud of you, boy. See what they don't know. We family. Touch, baby. Coming home. They don't know. Spray on full clips, play on full shit. Is they on? They were saying I wrote shit. Yo. They were saying we Next up, you have the screen. We're going to zoom on in so that way you guys can see this a little bit better and see all the features and functions that we have in the screen. It's going to be a really quick breakdown because we've already done this in the Prime 4 and also in the SC5000s. So just really quickly, we'll zoom into the screen and show you guys exactly what the screen's all about. All right, so here's the screen. You have all of your gesture controls. You can easily swipe up and down through your library. You can easily load decks to the right, straight into there, and you can also put them to the left to load to the left in this view. You also have other views as well. In the library view, you can either load the track or you can also put it into your prepare folder, so that way you can have a prepare folder to where you have certain tracks you guys want to play at a later time. You also have a search function here. You hit the search button, you get your QWERTY keyboard so you can easily find whatever you're looking for. Easy to find tracks and put them right in and load them right away. You also have your different menus here where you can see everything on your files or your whole crate. Next, you have all of your menus here where you can see your different crates if you have them in your whole library. You also have your playlist or the history of the tracks that you've already played. Then you have your prepared list. That's where you put the tracks at that you want to prepare to use at a later time. Then you have your whole file list that you have on any of the drives that you currently have inside of your unit. Next, you have your menu options. You have preferences, utility, source, and record. In your preferences here, you can start the track wherever you want. You can change your speed ranges from plus minus 4, 8, 10, 20, and 50. You have your different sync modes. You have your sync button action. You have your pitch control type. Then cues and loops. You also have display things you can do, safety things you can do, library things you can do, and you can also change your deck colors. Also in the screen area, you have your utility menu where you can come in here and change your device settings such as Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi settings. You can change mixer settings like your EQ type and your ISO EQ low and high crossovers. You also can change your filter resonance. You can change your different integration. You can change your firmware, check your firmware updates and everything here. So it's really, really cool to have all this information at your fingertips where you can change things on the fly. So in conclusion, the Denon DJ Prime 2 is an excellent choice for anyone who wants an all-in-one DJ system with all the bells and whistles of the Engine Prime software. They also want something that's a little bit more compact than the Denon DJ Prime 4. It has a nice smaller footprint, so that way it's easier for you guys to transport. It's easier for storage, and it's also easier to fit into a smaller, tighter space that you guys may have. So that way it's just an easier proposition in terms of size to get this over the Prime 4. It also has great build quality, the same great build quality that's found on all of the Denon DJ Prime gear. It has that metal faceplate up front, really hard reinforced plastics everywhere else with some metal reinforcement on the inside. It also has that high resolution, super dope touchscreen. It's leaps and bounds what anybody else in the DJ market is doing today, especially on all-in-one units. It allows you to do so much right there with your fingertips. Just as you're using your smartphone, you'll be right at home here on this touchscreen because it has the swipe gesture controls, and it just works really nice. It's very, very fluid, and it just ties the whole system together very, very nicely. The Denon Prime 2 also gives you multiple library options. It has the 2 USB ports on the back, another USB port in the front, along with the SD card slot, and you also have this slot in the back or underneath the unit to where you can plug in your real hard drives that you use with computers, so that way you can have a really big, fast mega drive right here on board. It also has the streaming services you can use as well, and that includes SoundCloud, it also includes Tidal, it also includes Beatport, and I'm sure more will probably be added along the way with all of the different firmware updates that they release for the Prime 2. You also are getting your 3 different outputs here and an auxiliary input and 2 different microphones. They work really, really well, and they have good, nice volume to them. They have all of the different controls you're going to need in order to adjust them, and they just work really nicely. It's always good to have a really good microphone system on your Go device. On the downside, the Prime 2 still suffers from the same issue that I have with the Prime 4 and with the original SC5000, and that is these jog wheels are just a bit too stiff for me. They just don't feel close to real vinyl as I would like them to, and that's a really bad shame, because if that was the different case, I would definitely want this over some other systems out there. But because this is the main point of contact for me and I go by feel when I DJ, this just wouldn't be a setup that I would be interested in, and mainly because the jog wheels just feel too stiff for my use. Also, you're losing a lot of the cool features of the Prime 4 when you go to the Prime 2. I would say spend the extra $350, $400 and get the Prime 4 if you could, because you're going to get a lot more features. You're getting bigger jog wheels, you're getting bigger pads, you're getting those effects windows where you can see all of your effects on board on these little screens that they have there. You also are getting your full standalone 4-channel mixer mode when you have that unit, and you also get that really cool zone output as well, and the zone output allows you to play something different than what you're actually playing back out of your master outputs that are already present on the device. So you're missing a lot when you downgrade from a Prime 4 to a Prime 2, and I feel like they could have kept maybe some of those features here with the Prime 2, but they decided not to, probably to keep costs down and of course to keep the size down as well. And another thing that plagues all-in-one systems to date right now is that they don't have like that cool tone play feature, so you can't really tone play with the pads, and they also don't have any sampler in there. So that's something that maybe they can work on in the future, so that way they can have sample pads, and they can also have maybe tone pads in the future as the computer processing power gets better and the software gets better. Hopefully that will be something that they can update or upgrade when a newer version comes out sometime in the future. So for more on the review, you guys can head on over to www.djbooth.net/DJS. You can see all of our other reviews there, or as well as this YouTube channel, you can see all of the other Prime reviews that we've done here. It's a really cool system, a nice ecosystem that they have set up. And now they have, again, the flagship Prime 4, this bad boy, the Prime 2, which is a little smaller, and they have the ultra compact Prime Go, which we'll probably take a look at very soon. It's also battery powered, so can't wait to get my hands on that, as well as the new SC6000 and the 6000M, and we'll see exactly how those perform in comparison to all the other series. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up if you like videos like this one, and as always, thanks for watching.